Hello and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I am Melissa.
I am still Luke.
And we are here still discussing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Today we are doing our recap of chapters 6, Gilderoy Lockhart, chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs, chapter 8, The Death Day Party, chapter 9, The Writing on the Wall, and chapter 10, The Rogue Bludger. So Luke, what just happened?
After Mrs. Weasley's howler, herbology class begins with the introduction of mandrakes and their uses. Ron's broken wand makes classes difficult, Harry is accused of seeking fame, and Lockhart takes up the role of mentoring Harry's thirst for fame. Lockhart's classes are a joke and he is clearly incompetent. But Oliver Wood unveils Gryffindor's new Quidditch team training, only to find their first practice interrupted by the Slytherin team and their new highest-paying player, Draco Malfoy, who bought the team new brooms. Draco drops the M word on Hermione, and Ron's wand backfires while defending her. While serving his detention, Harry hears a cold and terrifying voice which Lockhart doesn't hear. Later, Harry finds out that Filch is a squib, and then is invited to Nearly Headless Nick's 500th Death Day party, which is a real fright fest. After leaving the party, Harry, Ron, and Hermione investigate the voice and stumble upon a petrified Mrs. Norris, hanging in front of painted words telling that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened, and enemies of the air beware. Harry lies about hearing these voices to Dumbledore, and later on becomes the prime air suspect around the school. We learn that the mandrakes will provide the perfect anti-petrification solution, and about the Chamber of Secrets from Professor Binns. Hermione begins working on Polyjuice Potion to interrogate Draco Malfoy. Lockhart uses Harry to act out famous scenes from his own books, and Harry is dogged by a bludger that has clearly been bewitched. After catching the snitch with a broken arm, Lockhart removes all of the bones from his arm, accidentally. While regrowing the bones in his arm in the hospital wing, Harry has a visit from Dobby, who admits that he blocked the barrier at King's Cross and that he tampered with the bludger. But before the night is over, Colin Creevey is brought into the hospital wing, petrified victim number 2. Well, we are doing a new section this week. We are introducing our target audience perspective. We are joined by
Lorelai.
And Lorelai, how old are you?
12.
And what grade are you in?
7th.
So you're pretty much the exact same age as Harry in book 2.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you a couple of questions about how you're liking book 2, and maybe go through some of the 5 burning questions that we've had in the previous chapters. All right? How's that sound?
Okay.
Don't be too nervous.
Too late.
Okay, so you've read through all of book 1 with us, and halfway through book 2. How do you think they compare? What do you like about book 1 compared to book 2, and vice versa?
I like that book 2. Like, they find in the beginning, they say, I don't know.
Are you seeing many differences between them, or do they seem more similar to you? Similar?
What do you like about them in general?
They're, like, creepy, but not, like, really creepy. Like, the second one's with the voices that you can hear.
So it's a little creepier than the first one was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, not, like, creepy, like, you can't just, like, it's just, like...
It's not scary, but it's a little creepy.
Age-appropriate creepiness.
Yeesh.
Okay. Do you like book 1 or book 2 better so far?
Book 2.
Why?
Just because it's more?
Yeah, it's more like these people are making me very mad. Instead of just like, oh, Malfoy is just getting on my nerves.
There's more people around to kind of focus on.
Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite character so far? If you had to pick one or two, who are the people you're really enjoying reading about?
Dobby.
Why?
Because, like, he's coming up with these really good ideas of, like, how to stop Harry. And, like, he just says them out loud. And he's just like, you did this? Just like, oh, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Oh, I wasn't getting my mail. You stopped my mail. About that.
That's really funny. Who don't you like? Or are there any characters who are driving you crazy?
The professor.
Professor Lockhart?
Yeah, he's just saying, like, I was a secret too. And I'm just like, you would probably be, like, his father's age, and he was a seeker at that time. Like, since he was in Gryffindor, and he was in Gryffindor, and he was the actual seeker.
Do you think Lockhart was in Gryffindor?
I think he said so.
I don't think he says so.
I don't think he said so. I don't know what Lockhart's house is.
So, since this is not technically the unrestricted section, but I'm pretty sure that he was a Slytherin. Hufflepuff is what it was.
Ravenclaw?
Is that right?
I still really doubt that he would be.
According to Pottermore,
Oh.
sorted into Ravenclaw House, Lockhart was soon achieving good marks in his schoolwork, but there was always a kink in his nature that made him increasingly unsatisfied.
Okay.
If he was not first and best, he would rather not participate at all. So, if he was the seeker, he was for
Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw. Yes.
Okay.
I still doubt that he would be seeker. Or in the Quidditch game at all.
All right, Luke, what else would you like to know or ask? Are you feeling a little less nervous?
Let's get into some of the 5 burning questions we've had.
All right, so my first question does have to do with Professor Lockhart. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's most annoying trait to you?
That he thinks that this is Harry's first time of being famous. He's just like, this is your first time. Go easy on it. Don't, like, put yourself out there. And he's just like, I've been famous ever since I, like, saved a whole bunch of people's lives. And I was, like, not even one.
Beat that, Lockhart.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's a pretty good answer.
All right, so in my question from chapter 7, Harry and Ron both had detentions because of, flying car debacles. Ron had to polish trophies in the trophy room, and Harry had to help answer Lockhart's fan mail. If you were given detention, and you had to choose one of those two, polishing the trophies or helping to answer the fan mail, which would you pick and why?
I'd rather pick polishing the trophy room.
Why?
Like, I don't want to be stuck with the professor all the time and be really annoying. And besides, I'd rather clean than write. I suck at writing.
Okay, all right. 2 more. Ready? What would your favorite game be if you were a member of the Headless Hunt?
Headless swimming. Swim and maybe your head might fall to the pool, down to the pool.
You'd have to hold on to it with one arm the whole time?
Yeah, and just do it.
All right, and my last question for you for our section is, so here's my poll, all right? So you have to tell me, yes or no. Would you want Dobby to be in charge of protecting you?
Yeah.
Why?
Just like, seems like he would try his best and come up with really clever things, and then he just say them out loud. Just be like, can't believe my friends aren't writing to me. Oh, about that. What?
All right. So, are you willing to join us at our next 5 chap recap to talk about chapters 11 through 15?
Sure.
All right. Anything you're looking forward to as it keeps going?
What will happen to Lockhart? Since the last book, the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher was evil, maybe, he's evil.
Oh, so a trend line of evil defense against the dark arts teachers.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. All right.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Thanks for your perspective.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? You're listening to a podcast. That means you probably like listening to content through your earbuds. Let us give you a free audiobook from audible.com so that you can listen along to the book that we're going through right now, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. To do so, go to www.thepodcastthat.com/support us and use our special Audible affiliate link to start your free 30-day trial today. All right, well, one of our favorite parts of every 5-chapter recap is being joined by our first-time reader, our little brother Riley. Welcome back!
Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, Riley.
Hey,
It's always fun to be here.
So we just went through, chapters 6 through 10, Gilderoy Lockhart, Mudbloods and Murmurs, the Death Day Party, the Writing on the Wall, and the Rogue Bludger. What really stood out to you these 5 chapters? What'd you like? What'd you not like?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest things, like in an overall sense, that I liked was just adding way more depth to a lot of the characters, adding a lot more depth to the School of Hogwarts, like introducing new spells and potions and parts of the castle. Some of the stuff I didn't really like about these chapters, it seemed kind of forced, like, and repetitive almost. Like some of these chapters seemed pretty filler to me. I don't know if you guys feel that way at all, but it was kind of like a washover of the last book. It seems like a little bit.
It's a lot of recap, a lot of talking about the same things that if you hadn't read the book, 3 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
or 6 months, or a year ago, then maybe
Probably.
sure, kind of retouch on those. But I mean, this book came out almost exactly a year after book 1, so I don't know when that would have been really necessary outside of it just being a child's book where that's kind of common.
Well, and that's funny that you said that you felt like it was just sort of filler chapters, because I actually didn't feel like that this time. But in book 1, like chapters 11, 12, 13, I remember the last read through that we've done for the podcast, that really dragged for me. But this time, I felt like there was something big kind of each time that kind of kept me going with the plot while still getting the deep world stuff. I thought she actually had done better this time of not being so draggy and fillery. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of these that come across as being better written overall.
Mm-hmm.
Like the overall plot is actually there, and it's overall moving already, which is good to see.
Well, I guess the biggest thing that I mean is in the first book, in those kind of drag on chapters, it's like, oh, we feel sorry for Harry again. Oh, we kind of oh, he had such a hard life. We feel sorry for him. But now it's oh, he's famous. Colin Creevey's walking around behind him. Lockhart is still just acting like he's more famous than Harry the whole time, which I think is interesting. It just, I don't know, it seemed like it happened a lot in just a short amount of time. Yeah. So the point is definitely across about those things. They're playing up his Lockhart's famousness and trying to pin that against Harry's. But
right.
I just feel like it was pushed on me really hard. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think something that we've talked about in the past, couple episodes is they do play that up a lot more in this book, which is a big reason why you maybe never realized it, like you said last book, that you never really felt the gravity of how famous he was. And maybe it's because we knew, in these books and moving forward, it's pretty pronounced. But last year we didn't get that. Book 1 we don't get that, and we had a lot of world building and a lot of setting the tone, and here's what Hogwarts is, and think about the first day of school at a new school. There's so many things for Harry going around that even if that was going on, he's so distracted by all these other things that there's no chance he probably would have even recognized it as that. But now that he's a sophomore, he's been there a year, he's going to notice those things more, and that's what we're seeing. That's something that I take out of that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So what else did you get out of this this section? We see some more Quidditch. We see a Death Day party.
Yeah, so I guess we could go to like chapter 7. Even though I kind of put this, I said Mudbloods and Murmurs was kind of filler. I think we did learn something big in learning what the definition of a Mudblood was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's pretty huge. And like, you know, we saw how Hermione didn't even know what it was, but she knew like it was so bad because how everybody else reacted around her.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. Like when I was reading through it, I was like, oh man, like this is a kind of boring. Like not
You're not
much
excited
happening.
about the Gryffindor Quidditch training regimen? Come on.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
I don't know.
teasing our sister Abby.
Was she big on that?
Well, she's our Gryffindor Quidditch correspondent, so
Well,
of course she's excited.
She's
Yeah,
pumped.
that's awesome.
I'm not like I'm not really participating. I'm just sort of listening to you two talk because you're doing great.
Oh, I guess the thing that I really liked was how Slytherin is it to buy your son's way into the Quidditch team.
Right?
You know, I love that. I thought that was like one of the funny things. There was a lot of funny things that happened in these chapters to me.
Yes, I agree. In general, I think this book is funnier than the first one.
I think her writing style has gotten... She's better at doing genuinely funny.
Yeah.
Like, this is a joke to be a joke and not like, well, that wasn't that funny. Like,
oh, like
right.
The funniest thing is in the next chapter, the Death Day party, the quick spell. Oh my gosh. I was laughing out loud reading it. It was
the
so
infomercial.
funny. Oh, yeah. And I think that's what I was talking about when I said it fills out more of the characters. Like, I obviously have seen the movies. I knew Filch was a grumpy guy, but I never knew that he couldn't do magic. I never knew that he was
Yeah, I think they
Squib.
skip over that entirely.
And I just, like, it made me like him a lot more.
I'm sorry. That wasn't for him. He was holding it for a friend.
It was for a friend.
Oh, come on.
Not that it was mine. Not that you
And
looked
not
at
that
it
you
anyway.
read it.
Not that you read it anyway.
Because you didn't read it. But even if you had, it's not mine.
I have more about that later. That may be in the end of the episode.
So that happened in the chapter 8, the Death Day
Yeah,
party.
with the Death Day party.
And
Which I thought also was funny. Nearly headless does not mean headless. 100%.
yeah,
I love that. That was really funny too.
it's such a sticking point.
Nice one here.
Dad jokes.
Yeah, your dad jokes are.
So what'd you think of all the ghost activity that we got? There's a lot more in these 5 chapters here than we've had at all. Like we haven't really seen. Yeah, we really haven't seen them since the first year opening feast. Like there's been a little bit here and there of there's Nearly Headless Nick, but this year, these 5 chapters we get a ton of exposure with Nearly Headless Nick, the Headless Hunt, Moaning Myrtle. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, there is. Like, there's like a whole social system based around in these ghosts' lives. Like, they celebrate their death days, which is, I think Ron says something about that being weird. And,
It's pretty morbid, yeah.
Yeah, and how Nick is trying to get Sir Patrick.
Yep, Sir Patrick Podmore.
To get him into the hunt, which is it's just funny. Like they all have aspirations. Like they're just like normal people. I love it.
Yeah, they're just dead people.
They're past people?
They are
People of the past tense people? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a good one. I don't have a good one. So then we move on and we see the Writing on the Wall chapter 9. A couple things happen before that. I'm trying to think what leads up to.
They find the petrified cat.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right after the Death Day party. They leave the Death Day party and find Mrs. Norris dangling out in the 3rd floor corridor. Right. So.
What do you think of the wall? What do you think of the dangling cat?
I think it's that's the part, like that's the mystery of the story. We're getting into it finally, which I started to get excited about, because I obviously want to know what's going on in the story. Like that's what I've been waiting for. Like I enjoy the Hogwarts build-up stuff, but I like to get down to what happens in the story. So I was excited when that happens, but like again, going back, I feel like the things that the trio did afterwards are very similar to the first book, and like how they go on a kind of a, what it seems to me is like a wild goose chase, and they start pinning it on like Malfoy, and they have this whole, they're getting into this whole plan in chapter 10 to use the Polyjuice potion to get like.
Do you not think it's Malfoy?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it's so. He's not. He's a Slytherin. He's not a bad guy. Come on, all Slytherins are good. I just think there's something obviously going on that's way not him. I don't know if that's
okay.
But like, I think a lot of those characters took weird turns, like especially Hermione, turning to be like pushing them to break the rules. Like she's never done that before, and I think that goes to say like I think she was really affected about that Mudblood comment, and she's like really witch hunting Malfoy right now.
I can see that. I never thought of it that way before. I just thought of it more as her being influenced by Harry and Ron.
For a year and a half now.
Right. But to look at it as like an internal struggle with the attack that Malfoy did to her, almost as a subconscious retribution. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I feel like she's the one driving them on this mission. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, she even says that, like, I don't want to break rules either, but I don't want, any Muggle-borns to be attacked. I mean, clearly she has a dog in that race, as they say, being herself. But what do you think about, it seems like Harry and Ron and Hermione were caught red-handed, at the scene of the crime, and seems like some of the student body, and maybe, I think clearly Filch thinks that they did it. What do you think about the student bodies, like the school's reaction to Harry specifically?
Well, I think it's kind of deserved. Like they continually have put their nose in things where they've been told not to. Like I don't think it makes sense for them to think they killed the cat and like wrote blood on the wall. I just think that's a wild accusation, but I don't see it as being.
It's not that far-fetched.
No, because they stick their nose in things all the time, constantly.
This is true.
And especially like that was another thing I noticed. They like consistently kept making kind of dumb decisions these chapters, I think.
Do you have a couple specific dumb decisions?
Yeah, so but in chapter 9, the line is, can't hurt to have a poke around in the girls' bathroom. Like, obviously it can. Like, you've poked around plenty of places, and it has gone very bad for you. Like, just go to your potions class. Like, just, I don't know, like...
Just stay out of it for once.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that we get Harry being by this voice in the walls... or something, like it's following
in the walls, in his head, something. He's the only one hearing it.
Well, it's definitely he is hearing it, but it's definitely moving away from him and closer to him at points. I feel like I don't think it's in his head the way that it's written, because he like starts chasing the sound. So
what do you think it is?
He'd be running in a circle. It was in his head.
Like, what do you think this is? That voice?
I have no clue. Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Some random voice.
I mean, it's got to be something related to like the evil guys. It's got to be Voldemort doing something, I think. Because, well, I think so. I mean, he's the only bad guy that we know of, really.
This is true.
Yeah.
Because even in the first book, they did, like, right at the very beginning, the very first chapter, introduce Voldemort. And in this book, they haven't really talked about a bad guy.
And another reason why I don't think it's Malfoy messing with him and doing all this stuff is because in the beginning of the book, Dobby is telling him not to go. He says that there's going to be bad stuff that happens. Like, I mean, obviously Dobby knows something that we don't, and he comes back and in the infirmary, which I have a note while I was reading this, I completely forgot Dobby existed. And so when he showed up again, I was like, wait, what? Like, it just caught me off guard. But,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's a pretty random, throwback, 7 chapters later. I mean, because we've never seen a house elf before, and then now all of a sudden one's showing up when Harry's in the hospital wing. Like, where's that coming from? Yeah, I agree. I can see where that would be pretty surprising.
But I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's something very powerful, though.
Okay.
So that last chapter that we do have, we find out that it is Dobby that, has the rogue bludger that chases Harry during the Quidditch match. So, like, what do you think of that? The way that whole went down, where they were playing the match.
First thing for that. All right, a couple things for the Quidditch match in general. Harry is rich. Can he not buy brooms for all of Gryffindor?
I would guess. Like, my thought is just because he is rich doesn't mean he has to act rich. Like, you can be good.
I know he's trying, like, he is a humble kid. Like, he comes from the humblest or the worst of, places or whatever. But I don't know. If it's really that big of a deal, just go buy some brooms.
I mean,
do it.
I don't think he thinks like a rich kid, though. That would even be an issue.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, he fundamentally does not think that way. Like, he probably has no idea how much money he has. Or how it is relative to the cost of...
They told him.
No, I mean, he just saw the mounds of gold and silver and bronze pieces. He doesn't really... I mean, maybe he got a ledger. I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it. But he might still get a count, summaries from, during at Outpost. But I don't think he realizes how much cash he's got. And I think realistically... brooms are pretty expensive. Like, I think that's, especially like this caliber brooms, like, I think it's a pretty big deal.
That makes sense. It was just like an offhand thought, like, bring that back maybe. But,
yeah, I still like the idea of an alumni fund for the Quidditch teams.
I'm a fan of that. I could sponsor a good Ravenclaw team.
Yeah.
Another thing that caught me, not off guard, but I didn't know there were timeouts in Quidditch. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't
Apparently,
think that's interesting. Yeah, and when during the timeout, why would Gryffindor lose if there's a rogue bludger coming after that? Like, that seems like, because they said if we stop the game now, we'll lose. But, like, why? Like, your player's life is in danger. Like, how screwed up is Hogwarts that it's like...
Two things. One, they were losing at that point. Like, if they ended the game, they were behind in points. So technically they would lose. And I wonder if, like, the end of the game, they would forfeit.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. I think the way that Oliver Wood was talking about it is they would have to forfeit the match to challenge it or something, which if it doesn't go their way...
doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it comes down to... I mean, clearly, Madame Hooch wasn't realizing what was going on, so how observant is she as an officiator?
If Fred and George can notice.
Right. I agree that it should be pretty easy to protest it, but it wasn't going their way, and Oliver Wood's out there, well, we just have to win the match on our own terms regardless, so let's do that. And then have an inquiry after. So... And heat of the moment, Oliver Wood, you're not going to have him be okay with stopping a match. I just don't see that happening.
No, I
He's
agree
very
with you.
dedicated.
What other thoughts do you have on these chapters? Anything stand out?
The bone removal spell?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. I think that's my best magic usage of these chapters.
Okay.
Really?
Even if it's intentional. You could just remove somebody's entire
I hadn't really thought about it. It's impressive magic.
Can you find a practical application for that, please?
Yeah. Oh, there's Voldemort. See a skeleton. Like, get me now.
He's like a blubbering mass of organs.
And touch him for a couple seconds, and I mean, that's all he did. He just grabbed his arm, and his whole bone was gone. So
I haven't really thought about the quality of magic that it takes to do that. But yeah, I mean, it can't be that easy, right? I mean,
I mean, thankful. I don't know if it happens a lot, but they have bone regrow potions. Like,
It
just
sounds
stocked
painful.
up in the infirmary. So who knows?
All right. Well,
But
with that,
I really like that.
let's go ahead and get into your 5 burning questions.
Okay.
I really like that we ended our conversation on Professor Lockhart because my first question is about him. Is there an annoying trait that Professor Lockhart does not have?
An annoying trait that he doesn't have.
Yes.
He he doesn't stutter. Like he's never like too quiet. You can't ever not hear him. You know, I don't like. I don't,
He's
I hate when
articulate.
people like. Yeah, he's very articulate. So
Excellent.
I'm never gonna get annoyed that I can't understand him.
Eloquacious.
Okay. All right. He is understandable.
My answer was he doesn't have bad hygiene. That was
Yeah, similar vein.
yeah.
Excellent. All right. Question 2. Given the choice of having to polish all of the trophies in the trophy room or having to help Lockhart with his fan mail, which detention would you choose? And you must choose one.
That is a tough choice. I love that both of them wanted to switch back
Yeah.
to the other one
Definitely.
so badly.
I have one
but
question that
because-
goes along with this stipulation. Is Riley also belching slugs like Ron was while cleaning,
no.
or just like right now?
Just like now.
Okay.
Like you
Okay.
screwed something up and you gotta go
Yeah.
do a detention.
So then,
These are your options.
because I'm not Harry, I would choose Lockhart because I mean, I don't know that he's a jerk. He's just a famous guy, you know. So
Okay.
I think that'd be fun.
And he wouldn't be necessarily going after you like he does Harry as
Yeah,
much.
exactly.
Because you aren't seeking fame.
I wouldn't be a threat.
There you go.
That's pretty well said.
Nice. All right. Next question. Which game from the Headless Hunt would you be most interested in participating in?
Oh, do you have the list of names
Oh,
of them?
I know.
I forget what they were.
I know there was headless hockey, there was headless polo, there was
Hold on, I will look it up.
I think there's only 3 that
Headless
are mentioned.
Polo.
Was that? I don't
I
think that
remember
was in
that.
there. We may have made that one up. That may just
No,
be us.
because like you detach your head and you use that as the ball, right?
I know, but I don't think that was
We talked about
necessarily
headless
in there.
water polo. I think headless polo is in there.
Here we go. We have headless, horseback head juggling, and head polo. So there's 2. I feel like there's another option when they come in.
Yeah, when they get there, they talk about it again. They start playing.
They start playing something. Let's
Oh,
see.
yeah, what'd they play?
Hold
Right
on.
before his speech. Before nearly had his neck.
I know, right?
That's the headless hockey.
Yeah, they start playing headless
So those
hockey.
are your 3 options. Head polo, horseback head juggling, or head hockey.
Or if you have a better answer,
Or yes,
fill in the
or
blank.
Option
Mm,
D.
that's even tougher. I would say headless hockey just because I love hockey and I would love to see what that is. But if I
What do
get
they
to
use for
choose,
sticks?
what if they did like a track and field event, like a headless track and field, like
Like shot
like
put?
it,
Or like baton,
Yeah,
like
shot
a
put.
relay.
Or,
like a relay. Yeah,
what's the...
that'd be interesting.
The shot put.
Watch a whole.
That
Yeah.
shot
I guess-
put's the...
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
I guess this is not like one sport, but a headless Olympics in general would be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nice.
Or play.
Fair enough.
Who would judge it?
Nearly
Not,
headless Nick.
Nearly
Good
headless
play.
Nick. Yeah.
not nearly headless.
Well, he could still be there and to judge.
He would not be fair. He'd
He would
like
not be an
France
impartial-
in like
impartial judge.
1996 or whatever that was with the
Yeah.
figure skating. All right, my next question. Do you think Harry should tell Ron and Hermione about him almost being sorted into Slytherin?
I mean, yeah, because Harry doesn't know like almost anything about the wizarding world. I mean, he does now, but like I feel like every time he tells Ron specifically something, or Hermione, like Ron, he'll talk to Ron, and Ron will say something about like the culture, the history that he never knew, and Hermione will say something about just science or like magic knowledge, essentially. But I feel like whenever he tells them things, they always give him something back that he didn't know. So I don't see why he wouldn't, other than the fact that he's like so embarrassed about it or like hates Slytherin so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think like they would judge him for that, though. So I think he probably could or should.
I agree with you. Like they always give him something back, and usually it's like really thoughtful or practical, like to get him to sort of get out of his own
relevant
head.
Or practical. Yeah.
Well, and Harry tends to like muse on things and
bottle up.
Yes,
he broods a lot.
I think
there's the word.
Between the two of them, they always have the right thing to say. For him, specifically.
Yeah, definitely takes both.
That's what I was like. Between the two of them, they always, as a group, hit on the right thing that Harry needs to keep going forward.
Okay.
That's true.
All right, I have another question for you.
All right.
Would you want Dobby to protect you?
No. What?
No.
I do not like Dobby at all.
Okay, why not?
That was so funny.
Okay.
He's so annoying, and he's so backwards about everything. He's not there. The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Okay.
Your reaction was perfect. What? No.
Oh man, I wish we had video of that to put out just of that look. It was awesome. I have a bonus question for you.
Okay.
Who opened the Chamber of Secrets before?
Oh, because it's been opened again.
You're right.
Right?
Yes. Man, that face is pretty good too.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Voldemort was my default answer.
When in doubt, pick the one bad guy we know.
Yeah, I mean, right now we do have just bad guy.
Hashtag bad guy.
So fair enough.
All right.
All right, Riley. So over these 5 chapters, there's a lot of good lines. Like we said, there's a lot of funny things that happen. What was your favorite line in this section?
My favorite line was already mentioned earlier, but it's after Filch catches Harry reading his quick spell, and he says, "If I thought you'd read my private, not that it's mine, for a friend, be that as it may, however," like he just can't finish any of this. He's so embarrassed. It's so funny. It's the funniest part of all these chapters, and I think that's what stuck with me the most, just because that quick spell, like, there's people who, I love the mentality of, I'm not going to put the work in, I'm just going to try to, like, and I don't personally love that mentality, but from, like, a humorous standpoint, like, everybody's gone and, like, oh, how to do this for beginners, or, like, the Dummy's Guide to Fixing a Tire, or something like that. Everybody has those, and I just think it's so funny that Filch is the guy who is trying to, a beginner's magic for dummies,
Yeah, no, that's the remedial stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. Okay, so along with that, in this section, who is your section MVP?
All right, it might be a little bit of a cop-out. I do have a backup, but I chose no one for the MVP because I don't think anybody knew what was going on in these chapters. Like, we're getting so many clues to this story that's, coming up to us with the writing on the wall and the voices, but Harry doesn't know what he's doing. I think Hermione is leading them on the wrong path. I think it's not Malfoy, so I think that's kind of it's kind of a dumb path to chase. Ron, he stood up for them, but I don't think he did anything super spectacular. And it's for sure not Dumbledore or McGonagall, because at the end, they're like, they don't even know what's going on. at the end of chapter 10, McGonagall, it says, like, she looks super puzzled. It just seemed like nobody knew what was going on. LVP, least valuable member, or player, and it's definitely Lockhart because he's super annoying.
Yeah, no, I think we are all on board with that.
But, I mean, if I have to pick an MVP, it'll be Filch, just because I love learning more about his character and why he's so angry and hates the students. But he didn't really do anything great.
Okay.
He's the one that I enjoyed the most these chapters.
Not even nearly Headless Nick.
I was gonna say, well, let's. Do you have a favorite, Melissa? Do you have a favorite person in this section? I definitely do. And it's just for one single scene.
I am looking through like my past.
This is what I just did. I just looked at the 5 chapters
for each
at
of
who
them.
we had, and there's one that sticks out to me quite a bit. For one single scene, we'll see if you pick it.
I will say, I sort of agree with you in that if I had to look collectively at these 5 chapters as a whole, it's hard to pick out one.
Sure, and I agree with that.
I have 2 that had good, solid scenes.
Big character moments.
The first one was Hagrid.
Hagrid.
In his hut, like, the way he sort of talked Hermione off the ledge without seeming preachy or parenty or
He
even
said,
like friendly.
There's no one in this school that's better at magic than you are at your age.
Yeah, he very much was reasonable and calm and like the voice of sort of like experience without being, the stupid grown up. Like, I really liked him. My second choice was
in that same exact scene. He also ribs Harry a bit
Yes.
about why hasn't Harry given Hagrid a signed photo.
And that
it's so funny.
That
it
he
was
had,
so legitimately funny.
And that he had met Ginny, who wouldn't say no to a signed Harry photo.
It was
like,
yeah.
This was the best Hagrid we've seen in the books.
Period.
So I don't know why I wasn't so pro Hagrid this time.
I know. We've turned the page on you. Like this is the Hagrid that we love. It's book 1 Hagrid that we had a little bit of an issue with, but
probably because we knew this was coming.
Right. I think that it feels so different from what he turned. This is a lot closer to, I think, how he continues forward.
My second favorite characters are the Weasley twins during the Quidditch game with the rogue bludger. How they put the life of their friend ahead of winning the game, contrary to their captain. I just really liked how they were adamant that no, the right thing to do is, save the dude's life. Like, no questions. No, there was no, you go here and I'll play the game. It was, this is our job. This is what we do. And I can't believe that you don't see how this is like the thing to do. So I liked that moment a lot.
So,
I definitely was looking at it more of
overall section.
The section and like kind of the story that seemed to be developing. So like, I definitely agree. Like I said, I liked Filch's character development a lot. I agree with like the Weasleys and even Hagrid. I like both of those. But in terms of like an overall, I didn't view them as like an MVP, which I guess in the future I still could. I mean, I just didn't think about it that way.
I mean, I would definitely agree with you in that there's no one character who's driving the plot in a positive way at the moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, looking at it in the way that you're describing it, it makes a lot more sense, for that to be your answer. So I'm fine with it. I'll allow it.
Cool.
All right. Well, Riley, thanks again for joining us, and we will see you after Chapter 15.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming.
All right. See you, bud.
Get to reading.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for us to venture into our unrestricted section. Only people with signed Gilderoy Lockhart autographs will be allowed in today. Don't worry, he hands them out like pancakes and candy, so everybody has one anyway. Come on in if you are joining us. If you are a first-time reader and don't want any spoilers, you are not welcome. You did not get your paper signed. And we will see you next week when we talk about Chapter 11.
The Dueling Club.
Until then,
stay imaginary.
Thanks. For everyone else, come on in. Okay, so my first thought is the very beginning of this section. We get to go to herbology. We take the readers to our very first herbology class. And you know what's convenient? Let's teach them something that will be used to fix the whole mystery in the end.
Yeah, that's pretty lucky that was on the
For day one.
On the syllabus this year.
Like, it just so happens that she has these mandrakes. Do second years always do mandrakes?
I was going to say, maybe that's always the second year first lesson. It's possible.
Except remember when Dumbledore was talking to sort of all the teachers in Filch, he's like, well, Pomfrey managed to procure some mandrakes. I'm like, so does she not always get the mandrakes?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking it was like she just got a fresh batch of mandrakes.
Maybe.
But maybe it is like this is kind of like a every once in a while thing, which is probably more likely. But I'm gonna go and say that she tries to do this often.
Okay.
But maybe they're difficult to go across.
Or maybe she, switches it back and forth and this year she has them and yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. What's your first thought?
My first thought, Dean Thomas basically solves the why couldn't Dumbledore find the chamber? He in class with Binns, he pretty much just says, well, it says it has to be the heir of Slytherin. Maybe they speak, or he said, I forget exactly what he says, but it's something like maybe there's like a password or something, or it's going to be Mudbloods and Murmurs, I think?
But maybe you've got to be related to Slytherin. So Dumbledore couldn't began Dean Thomas, but Professor Binns had enough.
I mean, he's pretty much right.
Yep.
You have to have the genetics or whatever the parcel mouth, however that gets transferred down.
I mean, Tom Riddle is.
Right.
An heir of Slytherin, and Harry has a piece of him living in his head, so that's how he gets to do it.
Yep, exactly.
But then I guess, like, really, it's less about that and more about being a parcel tongue, to be able to speak that. That's the genetic piece, which is why Ron can then open it at the end of book 7, because he's heard the word. So he's basically learned the foreign language.
Which we'll get, it's at the end of book 7, right?
Yeah.
I thought you said 6.
He said 7.
Good. I have problems with that whole thing. We'll get there.
Okay, yes.
But credit to Dean Thomas for being correct.
Yeah, and solving it, and nobody listening to him. Poor Dean.
Yep.
All right. So my next thought is, we're going to jump back to Gilderoy Lockhart, because, man, that guy drives me just nuts. I can't stand him. We never hear about the Dark Force Defense League again, of which he is a member. Wouldn't you think that a Dark Force Defense League would be instrumental in the fight against Voldemort? I mean, I get sort of in book 5 that the Order of the Phoenix is doing what you would assume the Dark Force Defense League would, because no one believes that Voldemort is back. But by book 6, where are they?
Yeah.
It's pretty unfortunate they apparently dissolve in the next 3 years.
Maybe they were targeted early by the Death Eaters and just wiped out.
Okay.
It's possible.
That's
definitely a possibility.
Not that I want anybody to die, but it does make me feel slightly better. I was a little like...
Or the Dark Force Defense League is more of like a book club or something where it's
an honorary membership thing,
right?
As opposed to a task
it's
force.
It's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons expedition where you're role playing these things and it's just a game kind of thing. Yeah, you deal with these things and you learn about these things, but you're not actually going out there and fighting dragons or dark wizards or whatever. But you've created this cool name called the Defense League.
See, in my head, I feel like the what was it called again? The Dark Force Defense League should be more like the TV show Flashpoint, which is the strategic response unit of the police force that gets called into the high risk, like critical, like the big intense situations that they're
like SWAT type
kind
stuff?
of like SWAT, but
a little more strategic.
A little more like psychology based. They have a little more like training and it's almost like if you make SWAT people also negotiators and have psychology degrees.
Sure.
By the way, very good show. If you like any kind of police show, it's one of my favorites ever. Just so happens to be set in Toronto, so that might be the shift of being a strategic response as opposed to a SWAT. But really good show.
Fair enough.
But that's what I think it should be. It
For our
should
Canadian
be like,
listeners, we love Canada.
Yeah, I could go off on a tangent on that, but yes, we do.
Yeah, it's interesting though. It is unfortunate that we never hear about them again. At least a mention would be funny.
Right, like, oh man, I'd call the Defense Force League, but unfortunately they've all been thrown in Azkaban. Come on, give me something.
Right.
Bring it up.
Yeah, but maybe this downfall is maybe they are so publicized or well known that they are easy targets, where the Order of Phoenix is much more secretive. No one really knows who's a member
Okay.
For sure.
So if the Dark Force League is the SWAT team, the Order of the Phoenix is like...
Oh, it's like the CIA.
Oh, no.
Undercover CIA.
I was going to go with like the Freemasons.
Okay,
or the Illuminati. Like hardcore underground kind of things.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Freemasons.
Whatever.
That's funny. I like that.
I pulled out my Dan Brown reference. It's fine.
Yeah. So speaking of dark magic, just because a wizard doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can't. I liked that line from Professor Binns.
Yes.
And it just kind of goes to show that, Dumbledore probably is a little bit more, excuse me for my language on this, a little bit badass. Like, he just is great.
Yeah,
and,
he is.
Like, he gets all these different types of magic. As McGonagall says in book 1, he's just too noble to use them.
Like, for real.
Yeah, so it's like the second reference we've had to, he has the knowledge, he has the power, he's just better than that.
But sometimes you have to stoop. Like, at some point, you have to...
Right, I think
fight fire with fire.
I think that's what Benz is getting at, is like, well, he's tried all of these things that would be considered dark magic to open the chamber.
Okay.
Or find it or whatever, but he's refusing to use them in general for other things.
All right. My next thought is, so in a later book, we find out that girls can enter the boys' dormitories because Hermione goes up for Christmas. Actually, no, we find out later in this book when she goes up.
Yep.
Wakes them up for Christmas morning. So girls can go to boys' dormitories, but much later we find out that boys cannot enter the girls' dormitories, and it causes the stairs to turn into a slide.
Mm-hmm.
And then a big alarm goes off and everybody laughs at you. On that first Saturday, how did Wood wake up his 3 chasers if he can't go up the stairs for that early morning Quidditch practice?
Yeah, that seems like it might be a little bit more of a special case, if anything, or like maybe he can somehow get information to Angelina, like maybe there's like a co-captaincy type thing on the,
or maybe he told the girls before bed.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's got to be, or maybe
plot hole.
Maybe a plot hole.
Yeah, I don't know.
But,
I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that.
No, and I never caught it before. But once you start really sort of thinking through, it's like, wait, hold on, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of little things like that I'm noticing in these early books that don't always line up with the later book stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's just a function of she got a lot better over time.
Well, and as you're writing new books, new information comes out.
Right.
But then you can't retroactively go back and add that information in.
Unless you're Star Wars. But...
Han shot first. All right.
How long did the writing on the wall stay up there? Mrs. Scour's all-purpose magical mess remover had no effect on it.
Is it still there now?
That's what is it still up there? Like, or is there maybe like once this was all finished, maybe the chamber was closed or whatever and the writing goes away?
Those are all
How was it put
questions.
Up there? Because it was done in chicken blood? Is that what we're led to believe? Right?
Yes.
It's painted in blood and the chickens are all slaughtered, so I'm assuming it's chicken blood. Like, what did Ginny do to get it stuck up there?
Yeah.
Because it has to be her own magic, right?
Yeah, I would assume
she can't channel Tom Riddle's magic through her. Like, I don't think. I mean, at this point at least.
So.
I think if that was kind of Tom Riddle's goal, was to take her over entirely to get the body or whatever. But at this point, it's just Ginny's magic, maybe influenced by, how to do something, or, hey, like almost like a halfway imperious curse, which is kind of what we're led to believe.
Well, that's what it kind of sounds like.
She's somehow controlled by him because she, has large gaps of time that she doesn't know what's happening. Like, she can't account for.
And think about it. This is the first time anything has happened. She's had that diary since that's doing the mind control on her, basically. She's had that since the middle of August when they went to Diagon Alley. And she'd already been writing in it at that point because she freaked out on the first day of school. We have to go back to my diary.
So after 2 weeks or so of having it, she's already pretty attached
I had
to
to have it. 2 months later, the first thing happens. So he's probably put a lot
got some pretty deep fingers in her.
Yes. So I don't know if it's her magic so much as it's him controlling her.
Right, but I think the magical ability still has to channel through her own.
Yes, but
and that comes down. That's a big question of how does the magic really work and all that. But let's not get into that.
My thought is, if he knows the magic, she has the capability. She just doesn't have the knowledge, and he has the knowledge.
That's what I was saying. So it might be more of like he influences her by teaching her how to do things.
Yes. But like,
I think it goes to how
she kills
talented she
chickens.
is.
How does nobody notice that? She, my question was, how did she get the paint that high? She's pretty small. Like, did she use her wand? Like, is it up there with?
That could be.
Is it paint? Is it chicken blood? Is it like? There's just a lot of.
And how is it permanently affixed? Like,
right. Well, and how did nobody notice that she wasn't at the feast? Was she at the feast? Did she do it before when did this happen?
Mhm.
How did she open the chamber?
Right.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of skip
Ginny
stuff here.
Yes. I
that
would say in general, like,
it makes the story better not knowing, but if you really dig into it, it's tough. Like,
it's a little fuzzy.
I'm sure you could go back and work it in, Cursed Child 2 or whatever, and
don't do that.
Please don't do that. And justify all these little things.
I suppose.
It's just
my one thought is
it's very reactionary.
To go back to opening the chamber, because Ginny is not a Parselmouth. She is not a descendant of Slytherin that we know of. But just like Harry can open it because he has a piece of Voldemort's soul in his brain, I would assume that since basically a piece of Voldemort is moving into her, that's how she does it. Correct? Let's go because if Harry can open it, I feel like if Harry can open it for that reason, Ginny can too.
But he actually is a Horcrux. He actually has a part of him inside of him. But she's just near a Horcrux.
But I think that's the power of the Horcrux is that the piece of soul is trying to get to a human. I think that's what the locket was doing with Ron.
Right, and that's what I was going to relate it more to the locket.
Yeah, but I think the point would be that if you could really open it, that piece of soul would go into. I bet that if Ron had given in, that piece of soul would go into Ron and take him over, which is what I think the diary is doing to Ginny.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about the locket, where it's basically the reason you get all upset and frustrated with everything is because basically there's another soul that you've somewhat been close to that's trying to penetrate into your soul. And
it's a pretty angry, evil soul.
Right.
Like, so if that was a piece of soul of a happy person, which it wouldn't be because a happy person wouldn't create ours, but if it was, then it probably wouldn't be that negative of an impact.
That's a little bit different way than I thought of the locket in book 7. Because I've always just thought it's like, okay, well, this isn't a inherently evil thing with a soul in it that's just trying to influence you but not take you over necessarily, because it's trying to preserve itself. Its main thing is to preserve itself, which maybe the best way to preserve itself is to take over another body. So that could be, I could easily justify that. Or maybe it's like a mind
control piece. Maybe it doesn't go into the body, but maybe it starts controlling that person.
Right, so that
the diary is doing.
That the person that has the Horcrux will protect it.
Yeah.
And get it away from any kind of harm. But yeah, no, that's definitely a different thought that I hadn't really gone into on that. All right, what do you got next?
All right, so Ron's wand, which I can get into for years and years and years, but Ron's wand backfires and he ends up slugging all over the place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Hagrid says to him, "But maybe it was a good thing your wand backfired. Spec Lucius Malfoy would have come marching up to school if you'd cursed his son. At least you're not in trouble." Oh, you mean like how in the 3rd year Lucius Malfoy comes up because an animal of yours attacks Draco there, Hagrid? Isn't that exactly what happens with you and Buckbeak? Yeah, it is a good thing that you didn't actually attack Malfoy. Let's think that through. And now I know that it wasn't Hagrid's fault that Buckbeak attacked Malfoy. It was Malfoy's fault. But yep, no, he was absolutely right. That is exactly what Lucius Malfoy will do.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Foreshadowing.
Yep.
That's funny. So what are the odds that 20... and I realize we're jumping back and forward a little bit, but that's okay. This is the unrestricted section. It's freeform. What are the odds that 20 spiders will be crawling away from the crime scene in a single file line at the exact moment that the trio goes back to investigate a few days later? Like, wouldn't they already be gone from the scene? Like,
yes, they would.
Right? I mean, unless, like, the snake's around again or something, because spiders flee from it, that we learn in Aragog's chapter, which is clearly what they're doing. They're trying to flee the scene.
But should they have been fleeing,
It's days later.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
I agree with you.
Convenient.
Yep. Plot point.
Yeah, it's...
I mean,
if it was that night that they were there and they glimpsed it, when they got caught with, red-handed almost, like if they noticed, oh, well, that was weird. Those spiders are just kind of acting funny.
Yes.
That'd have been, I think, a better spot to slip something like that in there, that you could make it not seem, it wouldn't stand out very much, which then going back, I think, be more interesting when you catch it again.
Right. I didn't really think about it as, it's
but
so
it's
late.
Days later.
Well, I mean, I wonder if those are just random spiders that came across it and were like, oh no, we gotta get out. You know what I mean? Like, if that's been happening off and on for the last 2 or 3 days.
Along with that spiders are typically more solitary creatures in general. Sometimes they
not magical spiders.
Sometimes they pack. You know, they're pack type things.
They are in my basement.
Really?
Yes.
You got herds of spiders. What is the? Yeah, look that up if you don't mind. I don't know why I keep going to my phone when I have a computer right in front of me. But a group of spiders.
It's called a den, a nest, a pit, a bed, or a knot. No, that's a snake. Sorry, sparrows, spiders. Spiders come in groups called a cluster or a clutter. There you go. Okay. Spiders come in groups called a cluster or a clutter. So a cluster of spiders.
Okay. I wonder if that is. That doesn't seem like it fits for like a moving group. I would say if like wherever their hovel is, that would make more sense.
Although think about that. So if it's a cluster of spiders and they're walking in a straight line.
Right. They're no longer clustered. That's what I was getting. Like the spiders go marching one by one.
Hurrah.
But yeah, I think that's a little bit of a plot hole that it's conveniently right when our heroes show up that they see it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I feel like there are more plot holes in this book than there were in the first one. The first one felt very like everything had a place and all of the pieces made sense, even in flashback, even when you went back and rethought about it. Like, it was very well defined. This one, you've got the spiders 2 days later. You've got, why does Dobby know about this? What does Dobby know? Where is Dobby coming from? What does Malfoy know about the diary? What does he think he's doing? Like, there's just a lot of pieces that if you don't look too closely, look fine. But when you really examine it up close, you're like, but that doesn't make sense.
Ginny's timeline or whatever's going on with that.
Yeah.
That's
like if you tilt your head and squint, it looks fine. But if you're looking at it straight on,
there are parts in book one where you get that same thing too. I mean, where it's. I mean, how is Hagrid going to have that many slip ups? Like, to me, I
think that's a difference between. I think that's where I was going. I think in book one, the timeline and the exact activities were perfectly laid out. How she got our heroes to find out the information was less suave. You know what I mean?
Where I think maybe this information is switched. The information that they find out is better.
The way they find it out is great.
Yeah.
But the actual timeline plot is very sketchy.
I agree. If those are the two, I think they flip. If those are the two categories that we're talking about.
And I've never been able to put my finger on it before, but and this is a terrible thing to say as somebody who hosts a Harry Potter podcast. I've always told people that if you can make it through the first two books and get to book 3, that's when it gets like
I think
really,
the series
really good.
I mean, because it's a continuous story from the end of book 3.
Yes, like you have to get to book 3. You have to read 1 because it sets you up. 2 has never been my favorite book because it just it drags.
It's too similar to book 1. It's very, very similar in its structure.
But I think the sketchy pieces that don't really line up, that's always like nagged at me without me being able to put words to it.
Sure.
Although I'm definitely enjoying the humor of it a lot more than I ever had.
I think there are definitely some of
it's funnier.
Yeah, authorship things that she does better.
Yes.
In this book.
Yes.
There are times where the narrative is a little less tight.
Yes.
Which I think is what you're getting at.
Yes.
A little bit.
My point is that it gets so much better by book 3. And it's already good.
Yeah.
But I think that's always been why I've told people, like, you've got to get to book 3.
Yeah. And I really think that is another, it's the reason for that is books 1 and 2 are standalone. They just are. I know there's callbacks to them later on, but they're completely standalone stories by themselves.
Mm-hmm. You could just pick it up and read them and be fine.
Book 3, you can't. I mean, the cliffhanger there that leads directly into book 4. I mean, you have to have book 4 and basically all the way through the rest of them.
Yeah,
3 through 6, you have to read all of those to get an idea of what's really going on. There are parts of 4 which are standalone with the whole, Triwizard Tournament, but even then,
the end of 4,
right?
You need to know what's happening.
Is a lot like the end of book 3, where it's like, oh man, what did we just get into? Like, what just happened here? So I think book 2 suffers because it's almost a copy of book 1 in the really basic detective story. It's a little different on where it ends up, but the overall format is very similar. I think it was between writing books 2 and 3 that she decided to switch from the little kids book to a full novel story.
And here's what's interesting. Book 2 is a fabulous book.
It is great.
It's one of the best kids books out there. But in comparison to her other 6, I think that's the problem.
Right, and that's right. Like when book 2 suffers because we know where it goes.
You're comparing it to the other ones in the series.
Relatively,
one of them has to be the worst. It just has to. And okay. Not that it's bad, but if you put them in order from least to worst of the 7,
It's typically
usually,
at the bottom. I think for a lot of people.
Not that we don't love it, and I am really enjoying it much more this read through than I normally do.
Yeah, this one I think actually is benefited by going chapter by chapter a little bit.
As opposed to
Book one,
the first 6 chapters was great, and by chapter 11 I was like, oh my god, can we be finished with this book?
Which is, yeah, it's weird.
Whereas, and spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure chapter 11 of this might be my favorite chapter in the series so far. Is it chapter 11? Yeah. Yep, it really is. Chapter 11 it's so far the Dueling Club. It's so far my favorite chapter, at least humor-wise. And we'll get there. Okay. That'll be next week. Join us then. So my next thought of this is I want to see the Chamber of Secrets from Ginny's perspective. I want this book written from Ginny's perspective because, man, that poor girl went through some crazy stuff this year, and no one even mentions it or thinks about it or considers it until she brings it up in book 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that girl dealt with some stuff, and she did it alone.
Yeah, and manages it alone. Like, she doesn't talk to anybody else about it. Like, you know, she doesn't have, that we ever see, like a group of friends that, like Harry and Ron and Hermione, that she can, you know, kind of bounce these emotions off of, and hey, I just need someone to vent to about literally being almost taken over by Lord Voldemort.
So let's go with the fact that she ends up marrying Harry. And like there's always questions about, well, was she always meant to marry Harry? And even in book 1 she had this, in book 2 she had this Harry Potter crush. And I really think that it's this moment that makes her the best possible match for him.
Because she's the only one that can relate. To, having that close of an interaction with Voldemort at a soul level. I mean, you can almost say that they're soulmates because of it. But then at the same time, I mean, I think she falls a little smitten with Tom, as she's writing in her diary. Yeah. And that's the same soul that the Horcrux in Harry has.
I know.
Could Ginny be more attracted to the Horcrux side of Harry? I'm just throwing it out as a possibility that she sees similarities in... I mean, he doesn't really portray them. It's more abilities that come out because of that. The Parselmouth, the Voldemort occlumency connection. I mean, we don't really see a whole lot else. He's not real persuasive.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think it's...
I've just heard that theory thrown about before, and I didn't really buy it much.
I don't buy it either, because, like, think about the people you dated when you were younger, or the people that you had crushes on when you were younger. Like, those were all different kinds of people, because when you're a kid or a teenager, you date different kinds of people to see what works for you and what meshes well with you. Mm-hmm. I know I dated lots of different types of people before I found, like, my person. And it was because... I like this, but I don't like that. And not that they were bad people, just this doesn't mesh well with me. This does. Exactly. And I think it might be like that. I did, I had a crush on this, that didn't work. So I need somebody who's not, but who gets that, who understands what we've been through, who's had those kind of traumatic things. Because even Hermione and Ron, they don't truly understand. Even by book 7, when Hermione's like, just stop listening. And Harry's like, I can't. And I'm going to use it. So knock it off. Leave me alone. Yeah. Like, I don't think Ginny would at all have questioned that.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Maybe questioned it, but then would have understood once he explained it. Once he explained his feelings.
Right. My point is Hermione never understood it and kept questioning.
Right. Yep. I agree.
Ginny wouldn't have.
She would question it at the front. Yes. Like the, hey, don't trust something that can think for itself kind of thing, or something that's infiltrating your brain. Right. She would question it, but then completely understand why he would want to keep that as a weapon in their pocket. All right. So my next note is Dobby blocking the barricade. I just kind of have problems left and right with the entire 9 3/4 sitch, the platform 9 3/4. Like every part of it I have a problem with, I think. It's specifically in this.
We've talked about it a lot.
I know. I just keep coming back to it. It's like, where's the check-in? Like, you're really going to drive off in the train, ride off without the famous Harry Potter on board and, like, question Molly Weasley, like, hey, where'd he go? What's going on? And there was nobody else that was showing up at the same time. Like, everyone else in the school was already on the platform. No one else is a little bit late. I doubt it.
Right.
I mean, I get trains are, on schedule, but this is a one-time use per year train.
It's not like it's waiting for anything else.
Two-time use, but it goes there and it goes back. Christmas and
it's not like there's another train coming into the station on that track either.
Right. They can wait. Like, they're not going to start the feast without all of the students. And the whole, how does the train get from the platform onto the normal track. Like that I have a little bit of problems with. I can see where you can kind of have like a bat cave like entrance where it's just like, oh, from the woods, and all of a sudden the train's there, and like schedule, the magical world kind of schedules the other trains to not be in the way, or like they can't even see it when it happens.
Right.
Like you could hide that. I get it. It's just still, like, for how secretive it is to get onto the platform, it's a little surprising that it's that easy for them to get out without being noticed.
I'm with you.
What else do I have problems with on this? Actually blocking the barricade. House elf magic is...
Luke is ranting.
A little overpowered, I think.
Unbalanced. Like they have way too much.
Right. And like because of that, how are they still enslaved? Like I get that they are somehow manipulated and mentally corrupted into thinking that that's just okay.
Right.
That's just what it is. But like, come on. Like you have all this power. You can apparate anywhere you want. You can do all these things that normal wizards can't. I get you can't have a wand, but you can do some pretty incredibly powerful things. I'm kind of wrapping this all together, but I don't know. But the house elves still don't do laundry. What's the point?
Yeah, I'm not sure I remember where that is.
Well, you can't give them clothes. If you hand them a sock, that's freedom, instant.
What's the point of having a house elf?
So I've heard people say that, oh well, it's just you can't hand them clothes, but if you have like your clothes in a hamper or something, they can take that and go wash them or whatever and put them away. It's just
that's pushing the line.
Like I get it.
Yes.
You didn't give them the clothes, you just gave them the task. But to me, I like to think that they can't do laundry.
I'm going to go with, what's the point of a house elf then?
Yeah.
Because I hate laundry.
That's my least favorite chore to do.
Oh,
Doing laundry, not a big deal. Folding laundry, I hate.
I have trained my children to do that. I don't fold laundry anymore.
I'm working on my 3-year-old. We're getting there.
There you go. My least favorite household chore actually is dishes.
Dishes?
I hate that. I don't do that either.
Yeah. I like sweeping and vacuuming.
So does my son. Yeah. It's great.
I don't enjoy it, but I like how easy it is and how much it looks a lot clearer when it's done.
I will say my kids fight over getting to Swiffer. No, I want to Swiffer. No, I want to Swiffer the floor. No, I want to Swiffer the floor. Okay, you know what? You can do it today, and then you can have your turn tomorrow if you really want to.
Right, yeah. No manipulation there at all.
I know.
But yeah, I have more problems, I think, with Platform 9 3/4, but I'll stop here.
Okay. So I'm going to jump to... when we found Mrs. Norris being petrified, and Harry, Ron, Hermione found her, and then all of a sudden here comes like the wave of children up the stairs from the banquet. Why is Draco in the group? Because he's a Slytherin, and if they're all going
down in the dungeons behind the Great Hall.
Why would he be up on, is it the second floor? Why would he be up on the second floor after the feast?
Right, and it wasn't like, he would have heard the commotion and then come running up. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe there was a dessert thing going on in some other chamber. I don't know. He shouldn't have been there.
No, he shouldn't have been there.
And maybe like only the Gryffindors or Ravenclaws would have made sense to even be there.
Pretty much.
Because I think even the Hufflepuffs are down somewhere on ground floor.
They're by the kitchens, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
you have
it just
tickle
bothers
the
me.
peach or something.
Yeah.
Is that right? I know it's in
Or the orange or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and then that becomes the door handle.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
But I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good catch. Really should not have been there.
Really should not have been there. Where are the prefects yelling at him to go back to where he belongs?
Right.
Yep.
Okay. That's a really good catch. I like that. So I kind of mentioned this last chapter, but Dumbledore knowing who opened the chamber both times is holding information a little bit too close to the chest. Like, do you think he even talks to McGonagall about some of these things? Like, oh, I know Tom Riddle actually did it last time, and Hagrid got the blame for it. Like, how much does he know, and why doesn't he share information ever?
I don't know.
I mean, I get it's a plot driver of keeping the story moving from Harry's perspective of not knowing things. Like, I get that.
Right.
But it's, again, Dumbledore maybe knowing a little too much. Well, I mean, I think it makes sense for him to know this. It makes sense for him to know. I mean, he would have known that it was Tom Riddle last time. I think he had a pretty good idea that it wasn't Hagrid.
So let's go with he probably didn't know, but he had a...
Similar to when Lupin kind of explains that Sirius wasn't actually the one that did all the stuff with Peter Pettigrew or whatever.
Right.
Or I guess Sirius explained himself.
Yes.
To Dumbledore.
Yes.
No, because he was
Sirius explained it to Dumbledore off book screen.
I thought he was already Dementor's kiss before Dumbledore could get there and talk to him.
No, because otherwise Sirius would have not been Sirius anymore. Sirius explained it to Dumbledore.
Because Lupin went off as a werewolf anyway. Yeah, but he quickly kind of the believing in people or, thing a little bit too much every once in a while. Back in this book now. Hi, Poe. No, get...
And cut that. Oh no, here comes more people.
Hello, Glendon.
Oh, then I was wrong. Oh, the grandpa is coming over.
But I think it's the, believing people thing that Dumbledore has, that whenever Hagrid was originally expelled, I think he quickly believed that Hagrid didn't do it. And he's always been suspicious of Tom Riddle.
True. From the moment
the fact that it was Tom Riddle that caught Hagrid, I think Dumbledore, without...
And he didn't have enough influence in the school to stop it.
Right.
But he had enough to sort of protect Hagrid.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of where it falls on that.
So let's talk about the monster in the chamber.
Let's talk about the monster in the chamber.
It's really hard to remember the feeling of not knowing it was a snake.
I know, it's hard not to think of it now as being a gigantic snake.
It seems so obvious that it was a snake. Like, because even there's things that are like, oh, the fanged monster, and oh, this, like, there's even other kids who talk about the monster, and they refer to it with, like, snake-like qualities.
Like what?
Like the fangs.
Where do they? I'm trying to think.
I don't remember where it is. It's somewhere. I don't remember. I don't know. But I know there's things in there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not at all backing up my
That's
thoughts.
fine. But
like I'm reading it going, well, of course you think it's a snake. You said this. Of course you think it's a snake. You said this. Or the fact that Harry can talk to snakes and that makes him the heir. Like, how can it not be a snake? What other possible giant scary animal thing could it be besides snake? Are you doing your Kindle search?
Yeah.
For fanged?
Yep, I am. I'm trying to figure out what chapter 12.
So we're not there yet. I know it's coming.
So chapter 12, there is... Oh, now I've lost it.
Is it George? I want to say it's George. See? I know things.
So it comes down to the, oh, get out of the way, Percy, said Fred. Harry's in a hurry. Yeah, he's off to the Chamber of Secrets for a cup of tea with his fanged servant.
That's right.
So that's why, because I haven't re-gone through that chapter recently.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe playing on the Slytherin's heir, where Slytherin serpents and all that.
Mm-hmm. I do. I think it just bothers me because it's like, I feel like she set us up for it. And so rereading it now, it's like, well, of course it's a snake. Look, you say snake here. You basically say snake here. Oh, look. Like, I just, so it's hard to remember that reveal.
Right.
So I don't remember how I felt when it was revealed. I don't remember the surprise at it being a snake because it was always just a snake. And even like you have to open it using snake words and there's snakes decorating the walls. And I mean, like if a big giant, 15-foot tall kitten had come out, that would have been way more interesting. Of course it's a snake. That's all.
I think I still have like some problems with it being a snake, like getting not being a snake, but like how it gets around in the pipes.
Because it's a giant snake. How are the pipes that big?
How are the pipes that big? How does it come in and out of the pipes? I mean, is it just coming up out of the toilets every single time? Like, but how does it do that whenever it attacks other people? Is it just going through the hallways at that point for some period of time? It's
sketchy.
It's a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm. This book is sketchy.
Yeah. I'm trying to have a good attitude
it's
towards
like Swiss
it.
cheese. A lot of holes.
There are holes left and right.
Well, and then like when you read the chapter, it sounds like it's just this giant serpent. I mean, what do you think the diameter is on that thing? 5 feet? 5 foot diameter? 4 foot diameter?
The way it's described later on, I mean, yeah, it's a big honking, like a magically, size increased snake. Like normal snakes don't get to this size, and normal snakes get pretty beefy, Right.
Like, and even that, maybe 2 feet diameter. How is a 2 foot diameter snake going to come up through a toilet?
Right, which would be like a 4-inch pipe.
Right. This is my point. Like,
no, I know, and that's always been an issue for me. Yes. Is like, how does it go through? And I
mean, and so is it just
it's
magic
cool.
Happens.
It's an interesting way of doing it. Like, oh, well, it's all in the plumbing and all this, which is cool, but. I mean, you need like water mains that run down, like.
I do know.
Yeah, we both know.
Yep.
But, yeah, I just have problems with this.
Yep, I have problems with that too. All right, Luke.
So let's talk about Muggle technology working at Hogwarts. So the first thing that we've seen in this past 5 chapters is Colin's camera.
How did he even get that allowed in? That wasn't on the official list.
Do you think they're not allowed to bring things that aren't on the list?
For first years? Yeah, probably. But he did it anyway because he's a muggle and doesn't know any better.
He's brave enough to do it. No, but I'm surprised that like the normal camera, his muggle camera, works. Because we know that normal muggle things, technologies, don't seem to work around Hogwarts as part of the safety of the secrecy protection stuff.
Right.
Like, they usually go haywire, but maybe that's like things that just try to find Hogwarts that do that.
Well, and keep in mind that it's possible. I mean, I'm almost thinking of electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Cameras 20 years ago, not even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever, you didn't have to have batteries for. They could just be like, you snap the picture in the thing and it rotates the film.
Right, actual film aperture capture.
Cameras, yes, as opposed to digital. Digital cameras probably wouldn't work at all. But he even says, like, hey, they said I can process this film in a certain way. Like, so I'm assuming it's a film camera.
Sure.
Which I don't, if I'm remembering correctly, didn't have batteries in.
I mean, it has to have a flash on it still, right?
I don't remember if there has to be batteries for a flash.
I mean, it could be some kind of chemical
think
reaction that whenever you press the trigger. I don't remember how they work.
I don't remember either, but I feel like, yeah, I think you don't need one.
Okay.
Like, you don't need batteries in order for a flash to work. Because I remember having cameras as a kid in the 80s that you would put flash cubes on, and each flash cube would work once or something. So, yeah, you don't have to.
Okay.
We're just used to modern technology.
This is getting me towards a different point, though.
Yes.
And that is the Ford Anglia.
Okay.
Flying into Hogwarts. The car, the automobile, is a muggle technology. It does have a battery. It does have electrical systems.
It does, yes.
And what happens right when it crosses into Hogwarts?
It starts falling and losing its, like...
Right.
Yeah.
It starts going haywire.
And they attribute it to the car not working as much anymore, that it worked too hard.
Right. But, I mean, it was going pretty well until that point. I think they had a little sputtering here or there, but that could have been like the normal mechanical or magical stuff that was faulty-ish. But what if whenever it crosses into the Hogwarts grounds, I mean, that's when it just starts tanking.
Yeah.
What if that was the Hogwarts secrecy protection influencing or affecting the car? And then what happens once the car is on the ground? Mm-hmm. It gains this sentience and takes off. I mean, pretty interesting that it's on the Hogwarts grounds that this Muggle artifact, this Muggle technology gains its own personality.
I wonder what would happen if you dragged it off.
I don't know. I
think that's a really interesting point that I never thought of. Yeah, maybe it is really Hogwarts.
And so maybe that typically happens with like Muggle technologies. Like, what if it's Hogwarts that like any Muggle technology like gets its own personality? Like,
bring your iPhone, see what happens.
Right. I don't know. Interesting.
That is funny.
Interesting.
So my final thought of this chapter, I'm going back to Lockhart's class, because really, I don't feel like I can give that guy enough trouble.
Enough credit, you mean?
Trouble. No, I know exactly what I mean. Do you notice that we're learning about werewolves again this year? We learned about them in first year. Now we have another werewolf class in second year. You know we're going to be covering werewolves in third year. Does JK have like this weird fascination with werewolves? Because this keeps reoccurring, and yet there is really no mummies, no Frankenstein.
There's been vampires.
Vampires don't show up until book 6.
They had the lettuce-eating vampire mention here.
Okay, it's a mention, but they're not learning about them. So my point is, like...
Well, Lockhart teaches about...
air quotes.
About the vampire. I mean, I think that's just as much of a reference.
Your monster movie characters are not featured, but werewolves keeps popping up.
Where are they? This early, you mean?
Yeah. Where do you think they are?
Because we do get, like, reanimated corpses like a Frankenstein later on.
Okay.
I think it's just a really easy...
But it's not part of, like, the curriculum, which we've talked about before, and we have questions of anyway, but...
Correct, yeah. I think it's a really easy reference that a lot of people will get and not misunderstand. Like, for the young readers at this point.
Okay.
You can't throw too many different ones in there, I guess. I don't know. She might just enjoy werewolves.
Okay, all right.
Even though I called her out for how dumb it was for Malfoy to think that there were werewolves in the Forbidden Forest.
Dumb.
Oh, so two nights a month it's an issue?
Right.
There's just random people walking around out there until they turn into werewolves?
Right.
Get out of here. So my last note is kind of going back to magical photography and paintings again. So, like, what are the limits? And we've kind of mentioned this before as well. What are the limits of the images that are magically enhanced. You know, we saw that Harry's personality when he was in the picture with Lockhart, we saw his personality, like his inner personality, trying to get out of the frame, and Lockhart like trying to constantly pull him back.
Right.
Like what are the limits on that compared to the moving portraits that we see that can go into each other's frames and hang out and talk and have full conversations? Like where are these? What are the limitations here?
Well, I feel like if you think about the difference of how a picture is taken versus how a portrait is painted, a picture is literally a snapshot of one quick moment, whereas a portrait takes time and usually multiple sittings, and there's like investment in it. So if a picture is a snapshot of a single moment, it's going to capture sort of the emotion and feelings of the characters within that single frame, whereas the portrait carries the essence of the subject. So like of their whole person, because they put so much of themselves into it, and the artists put so much of their subject into it. So I think that might be the difference between like a photo, which is quick, and a portrait, which is a longer thing. That's all I got though.
I think in the recently released 3 little stories from Hogwarts books, they get into it a little bit there, and the portraits, I believe it was described as it's usually encouraged for the person who the portrait is of to actually spend time with the portrait so they can actually learn who they are and like their mannerisms and maybe get a little more backstory.
Interesting.
So I think that was an interesting way of doing it, especially because, like you were saying, the photography is just an instant. You know, it's just that. I wonder if like Harry would spend time with that photo, which he's not going to do.
No.
If it would change at all. I mean, I think it's pretty accurate on the way Harry was.
Yeah, I do too.
But
I don't think a photo is supposed to be
as personality
a
based,
long-term representation of a personality as opposed to just a memory of a moment.
Yep. No, that's
okay.
It's interesting magic that doesn't get touched on much in the books, and we just have to accept it for a long time.
Pretty much.
And it becomes a bigger player later on in the books with Phineas Nigellus and then all the headmasters' previous portraits and things like that.
Yes.
But and of course, Sir Cadogan.
Oh, Sir Cadogan.
That sounds like a song. Oh, Sir Cadogan.
No. It's Oh, Sir Cadogan.
I like Sir Cadogan.
I am annoyed.
Anyway.
We're going to wrap up this week. Any thoughts, comments, questions, random ideas that you have? We would love to hear them. Please email them to us at thepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. Send us your random thoughts on there as well at NotNamedPodcast. You can find us and our family of podcasts online at our website, thepodcastthat.com.
Subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Leave us a comment there or on YouTube.
Join us next week for Chapter 11.
The Dueling Club. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.